All right, today I'm joined by my buddy Mario Mitchell with the Mitchell team out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Guys, I will say this. We're going to talk some very practical things you can do in your business today, but we're going to talk about some things you can do that'll make your life better. Can't wait for you to hear this one. All right, so this is pretty exciting because I get to spend some time with my buddy Mario Mitchell. Mario, if you don't mind, before we even get started, just give people a little bit of a background of you, how long you've been in the business, what the business looks like right now, your team, that kind of thing, and the amount of business y'all are doing.
Excellent. Yes, Jimmy, man, thanks again for getting me on this podcast with you. It's always amazing just to chat with you and catch up as we always do. But to give everybody a background on myself, I've been in the business now about 17, almost 18 years as a full-time realtor. I've got a team of agents. We are called the Mitchell team out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Right now we've got 14 agents, one operations director. We are looking at goals. We did do a shift due to COVID, but our goals are about 60 million. We have since changed that down to about 28 million. So it's what we're shooting for this year. The average transaction for us, for our team, and in this area, just so people get an idea, based on where we are numbers wise, we're looking right around 345 per transaction on average for us. And then the biggest thing for us is maintaining focus, staying ahead, and just keeping the grind moving.
Yeah, it's been a big shift, and every market's different. And what's been kind of interesting is to get the perspective, because obviously, like you talked about shifting your goals, but as we're speaking on this, you and I were just talking before we came on. You're number one in the in the market right now as far as what y'all are doing. So it's been pretty interesting to see. We've had to shift some of our goals from what did we want going into this, and what is the real opportunity right now. And I've tried to focus more on gaining market share than I have, because as I talk to people all over the country, there's certain people that their markets are up, there's certain people that are down, there's certain people that are flat. And it's pretty encouraged to see this. I want to give a little background before we get into this, kind of how we met, because pretty interesting story. I remember, and we were, as we've become friends with some of these things, it's been really interesting to hear kind of how this all works out. I don't think there's ever any accidents, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so we were down, I remember the first time we met, we were down in Miami. I believe it's Miami. And I was at I was sitting there kind of late in the evening at the hotel, little lobby establishment, so to speak. And I was sitting there with Chris Stewart, CEO for Berkshire Hathaway, and you came up and he introduced me to you. And when you walked off, he told me, he said, "That guy right there is the real deal." And I was like, man, I gotta go meet this guy. That was when I went and hunted you down the next day, introduced myself. We got to start spending some time. And I thought he was talking about the business. You know what I mean? We're always assuming when we're in this business, but man, he was talking about you as a person. And so as we go into this, what I want to do is really kind of we're going to talk about this as far as what's going on in the market. We're going to share some ideas, but I want us to talk about some things that are really important at the end to you and in your life, because as I've got to know you, man, that's the biggest thing I see with you is the authenticity you have. I think that authenticity for your team, for your clients, for every area of your life is what's really helped you grow. But before we do that, let's really just dig into the business right now, see how much value we can add to some agents. Let's talk about kind of really, because obviously you don't start with this many in your team. You don't start with doing the amount of volume you guys are doing. How do you generate the leads to support a team? What are you doing lead generation wise that really you feel like maybe sets you guys apart and gives you the opportunities for your buyers agents and for your whole team?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think building a team, or more importantly, building your book of business. For us, we use Boomtown as our base CRM. We also buy into Boomtown, but recently, since the pandemic, we shifted a little bit more. We're putting more into print advertising, and through print, we're focusing on some really good farm areas, and we're farming those areas, more consistency. And what we're seeing on return from that, where we did not utilize as much prior to COVID, is we're getting a lot more return from there. The other thing is, trying to find creative events that we can do while following CDC guidelines. So we've really been utilizing food trucks on a monthly basis and sending those out to neighborhoods where folks still probably don't come out of their homes as much as they can. And we're just doing pre-orders where people just drive up, and then our team hands over the food to them. We say hi, and then we have a little dessert package inside of that. Little things like that, oddly enough, have been transacting a little bit more for us during this time frame. So, staying positive and doing things like that. As far as the lead side of things with the CRM, obviously we pay a good portion in still on the digital leads, where we're being able to incubate those over time. And what we see is the folks that we've been communicating with over 6 months, I want to make sure our team is focusing on the older lead, not the newer lead, right? So I think a lot of us tend to want more new stuff, and we like to be gatherers, if you will, but it's really the people that sit back and focus on what they're doing with that seed that started 5, 3, 4, 6 months ago, and maintains that communication. So when we're inside doing our lead calls, it's really doing the follow-up calls versus trying to ignite the new lead. We really want to maintain on the follow-up and get to know them more personally and spend time talking to them versus, all right, hey, you want to look at homes? Hey, do you want to look at homes? No, it's just, how's things going? How's the family? How's little Johnny? Is he still playing baseball? Is he getting around? Keeping it personalized so that in the end, it's not about transactions, it's about building relationships.
No doubt about it. Hey, this is pretty interesting. Let's dive back on this on the food truck kind of side, what you're doing there. So are you doing that with where you're actually, part of the mailer is announcing when you're going to come out? Are y'all calling people to let them know, or how is that working?
Yep. So we're in our farm areas, right? So everyone on the team we teach them how to farm specific areas. So every team member should have at least one farm, and then that's where we'll send it. So we'll send it into the farm, and most of our farms are all in HOA communities. So we'll get on the HOA lead board, if you will, and be able to send out the information. And then the HOA will push us from there. And get that into everybody's information. And then we also walk the neighborhoods, and we put out flyers and things like that.
Okay, that's great. So and you're starting to see that now. It's recognizing your name. It's those repetitions you need for them to build your reputation.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, so let's talk a little bit about kind of, when you're doing and you're shifting to the farming side. Are you doing that mostly with direct mail, the traditional way, or have you put any slants on any of that other than the food truck?
Yeah, no, it's all direct mail. So what we did is just increase the volume of the mail, where we used to do just once a month, put out a mailer to them. Now we're going anywhere between 2 and 4 times a month of different information that we're sending to them. Because as you know, I mean, this pandemic has changed, so every hour it can change. So every time we send something new out, it's ideas of what to do during a pandemic, right? Like we all don't want to be just locked into our homes. And in our state, in North and South Carolina, are completely, even though they're connected, they're completely separate in rules. So we like to send out ideas and things that's going on, and also allow people to understand that the market is still moving forward, right? The interest rates are still coming down, and values are still going up, believe it or not, right? So sometimes the media floods a lot of different things, and the market kind of goes away, and you forget about those things. So to have that tangible information in your mailbox, believe it or not, I believe that people are reading that more so now than they probably were before.
I would agree. I mean, we're seeing that with what we're doing too. I mean, the direct mail, it's almost like it's had a resurgence. I mean, where people are interested, especially when you add value. I mean, I think that's what you're talking about. So a typical piece like that would be talking about interest rates. Would it be talking about the market? Would it be talking about just what's going on in the community? Tell me a little more about kind of what that messaging looks like, because it sounds like you've shifted to really building relationships with your messaging more than just just listed kind of stuff.
Yeah, we went away from the information dropping, which what it used to be, and it was all focused on transactions. Now it's more about what can we do inside the community? What's coming up in this month calendar? What types of holiday events can you still do? What has opened inside of the area? Where can you now go and be able to go as a family and still feel safe? And ideas to do with kids. And so a lot of the sports were disseminated. Now there's things that you can do and take your kids. Now the parks were just open in our what we call 2.5, right? So phase 2.5, now kids can actually play in parks again. Some people may not know that. So we keep going with those things.
Yeah, and I mean, have you seen that? I mean, if you've been doing this now, what, about 3 months? I think you and I talked about 3 months ago. You really started making that. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. Are you starting to see it compound every month or every mailer where that information is helping, or what do you see?
Absolutely, yeah. We've got emails. We've got good feedback and good return on the food trucks. So I think it's and we've got some appointments out of it, and and some the calls are just more of, hey, I got your information. Do you know this, right? So that's a lead, believe it or not, right? So when they call us and say, hey, I've got your information, I love getting it. but I need some help on this concrete. We may sell in a year from now. Fantastic. That's a beautiful thing. I want that. Versus, can you come list my house? We can keep that relationship, because as we gain their trust over time, they're only going to tell their neighbors how helpful we were, instead of, please just sell with me, that kind of stuff.
No, I think that's a really good point. I've always said, that the worst thing in a lot of cases from a relationship standpoint and future business is for it to be somebody that calls you, you go list it, and it sells like that. And there's no, it doesn't have the ability, no depth. It's almost like you don't have the ability to build roots. And I mean, the trees that bear the most fruit have a deep root system,
Yeah.
And so it gives you that ability really to almost be the resource, in the neighborhood for all things, not just real estate. So, man, I think that is also something that you're seeing results now. Man, what does this look like a year from now? You know what I mean? How deep are those relationships, that you have in those prime farm neighborhoods? Do you evaluate each of those neighborhoods to make sure they're still being functional, or how does your farming look like? Do you do an annual revision on, hey, this is maybe one we need to shift out of and shift into, or how do you choose your farms?
Great question. That's a fantastic question. It's really, we very, very much so look at the transactional, and it's going to be every 6 months and every 12 months to make sure that it is still, a market that we want to stay inside of, because there are some markets that can go dry or can go cold. And there's some areas around here where folks just never want to sell, right? Once they're there, they're there. But those are the ones that we won't farm in, right? So when we're teaching our team, or if you're just thinking about becoming or building a farm, you want to go to a farm that actually has transactions, right? So whether it's too large, you don't want to go too large, but you want to find that medium farm. We always look for maybe 100 to 300 homes, and then farm that little community that we can work through. Because we have to be able to reach those people too, right? So when this pandemic may or may not go away, but if it does, what we do is we want to be able to walk that neighborhood and be able to have time with those folks. If it gets too large, it's hard to manage, right? So, I think finding the right farm is the best way to do it.
Yeah, that's great. How do you choose who your agents are to do certain farms? Do they choose those farms? Do you try to match people with people that are in similar situations they're in? Or how do you choose who works what farms?
Yep. So when we sit down on our training side of things, there's two pieces to that. One, where do they live, right? Do they live in a farm that makes sense? Or if it doesn't make sense, then let's show you how to find a farm. And how we find a farm is we pull a transactional report on each individual development inside of the Charlotte area, and then we go to that. So if it's transacting at 7% to 10%, that's a pretty good number to be in, and we want to focus on those farms. And then again, we want to stay under that 300 to 500 range of homes, and then we push them towards that within about 20 to 30 minute drive of their personal house, so they can go over there, hit some flyers, and be able to get it back to the house.
That's great. That's great. Let's shift a little bit and talk about past client. I mean, when you're doing the number of transactions that you've done over your career, a big part of it, I would think, is staying in touch with those past clients that you've already kind of, I guess, earned that know, like, trust. You've been down that funnel already. They already know who you are. They kind of know how you work. They know your heart. They trust you. You've had some successful transactions. How do you keep in touch with that group? How do y'all have a systematic plan of action where you keep in touch with those folks?
So our biggest thing, and we could probably still improve on this, I look to people like you that come up with ideas from different ages, from different areas as well for that. But for us, what's been working for us and what our clients look forward to is their annual review. And what I mean by the annual review is, what is the value of the home in that 12 months past? And we like to send that out to them for not just to list your house, but to know that they made the right decision moving forward when they bought that home, whether it be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. We'll keep sending that review, and we'll get the emails like, when's the review coming out, right? So it's their anniversary date, and it keeps us in tune, because as you know, or everyone should know, if you're not staying in contact with that client, there's always going to be another agent out there that will gladly pick up their phone number.
That's right.
Like
That's
me.
Exactly right. No, yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So let's talk about that. I mean, and let me throw a little hint out here too. I don't know if you heard about Homebotai yet.
I have heard. Yep.
So let me just give you a little background on that, because this may be something I know that we've implemented that has been tremendous. It basically sends, you have to have a partner lender that basically the lender is part of it too, but it takes all the data It gives them an electronic update on valuation. It tells them obviously that, hey, this is not necessarily perfect, but we're going to give you a range. It takes into account how much their mortgage was, how long the mortgage was. So it gives them almost like a financial report that comes in and says your equity now is this. And then it says, if you were to refinance now with rates here, you could save this a month, or you could go to a 15-year mortgage and it would be this.
Wow.
And it really is almost like a financial plan for the house. Man, I'm going to just tell you right now, and it's the information is so good and so powerful that it is almost like you're giving them a monthly. And then what we've been trying to do is follow up with an annual, unsolicited, basically CMA that we do video-wise. We'll record our screen and we'll do it that way, or we'll do it, like you say, the old school print way, depending on who the client is, and really trying to figure out how they receive it. But then we've got a copy of kind of progression there, and we can see how many times they open it. We can see what they do with it. It's really been very helpful. So I know that, it's a way to automate your past client follow-up with something that's huge and valuable. It's hugely, I mean, the folks that are coming in, they're like, I can't believe, all these details. It's literally like, if you were to take a cash out refinance right now, you could purchase a second home for this amount, It's just very helpful. But I think
that's smart. I think that because I think one of the big gaps that we have now is not being able to do our functions that we normally do throughout the quarters, where we can't have that interaction face-to-face inside of a setting. So being creative in that way. So this sounds fantastic. It allows also the lender to be a part of it, to dial things through. That's a great idea. I'm gonna jump back into that one.
All right, so let me ask you this. As far as like your follow-up, you're saying it's an annual basis. Do you have to-dos where it's text or email or a nurturing campaign for those folks that is ongoing, or how does that look?
Yeah, so we have our anniversary dates, our holidays and birthdays and things, which are through our CRM, which is going to do that automatically. I think that's one of the gaps that we need to get better on, because the amount of transactions that we do on an annual basis, that is always something that we could tweak to be a lot better. So personally, if there's any failures as a leader on my team, that is probably one of the ones that I know I have to focus on and get better at. So definitely looking to ideas to see where I can fix those for sure.
So that kind of brings to a point, because I love to get an idea from you on some things too. What's kind of like an app or maybe a tool or whatever, something that you're really using a lot these days that's been real helpful for your real estate? Is there anything in particular right now?
Yeah, so I messed around with a bunch of different things through this COVID time. It allowed me to get out of my box a little bit, which I love doing anyways. But ultimately I still end up more on Facebook. Facebook has just had the best return for us, bang for the buck. And it seems to be a better outlet for us on a family side of things. We tried to do some other different apps. We actually messed around with TikTok for a little bit and tried to figure that out. We're still trying to figure out a really good video program. But for the most honest return that I'm getting, I see the most coming from Facebook. And that's Facebook leads and Facebook interactions. That just seems to be working the best for us. So if there is an app, I don't know if that's an app, but that's definitely the best site for us. Yeah.
It's a huge tool. I'll say this too, Mario. What I like about the way you do a lot of the stuff is the way you're using stories also, whether it be on Facebook. I assume you're doing that on Instagram. I don't know whether you are or not, but I know like your Facebook stories. I want you to break this down a little bit. I'll tell you what I see from the outside that I'm really impressed and I'm trying to model some is the way that you'll document your journey. So you're literally like, whatever it is, at the gym, at the kids' practice, you're talking family stuff, but then it's like headed to a closing, headed to a showing, whatever it is that you're doing and sharing some of that. Is that personalizing? Have you seen some of that where it's made you almost more approachable and more personable to people when you finally do get them on the phone?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I do our training in here for our team, I always tell everybody, try to do your best to keep it as personal as possible, because at the end of the day, especially now, people are shopping online for virtual showings or whatever it may be. They want to feel like they know you. It's not like they can meet you for coffee, or maybe they could, or maybe they can't. Maybe they don't feel comfortable. But for me, that's something I've been doing prior to COVID anyways. I just know that a lot of people always want to ask me, what's your day look like? And sometimes I'll break down every month or so and I'll show them my whole day from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. of what I'm actually doing and how a real estate agent really isn't working 3 hours out of the day, 6 hours golfing. That's just not real, right? So there's a lot that goes on. So every hour I'll snip it in where I'm at, what I'm doing. And people are like, holy crolies, you're doing all kinds of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. And I think people need to know that we juggle, if not more, as much as they do, right? So our hats are so many more than just a real estate hat. I mean, there's more mental side of it than there is just opening doors for people, as a lot of people tend to think, right? So I think it's important to let people know that we're just as human as them, and we have lives just as well as them. And we have to be in a lot of places for a lot of people. And I think it's important that they know that and they respect that. And I like to watch that too for other people, not just real estate agents or stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads. I like to watch what people are doing too, just to see, ideas of what's going on in life.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I think that authenticity is what just comes through. When you get real with people, and they understand the things that you're doing, the plates you're spinning all day. I think it just makes it more relatable from a standpoint. And I will say this: if anybody's watching or listening to this, and they just want to go, I mean, on Facebook, you're just under Mario Mitchell, out of Charlotte. They can go to my friend's page too and see you on there, I guess, and connect. But I would say if anybody's out there as a realtor that wants to see, in my opinion, the best way it can be done with that mix, and I talk to people all the time, I think you're doing it as well as anybody I've ever seen from a standpoint of being relatable, as well as talking the business side, congratulating the team. That's one of the, I think, your big attributes coming from athletics background, is that you understand, that as the coach, you want to praise them when things are good, and you want to take all the heat when it's, shifting a little bit maybe. Right. So I think if people want to, is that the best way for them to find you on Facebook in particular? Just pull your name up, or is there a business page, or what's the best way on Facebook?
Yeah, great question. I think LinkedIn, it's the same as well as Facebook and Instagram. It's all Mario Mitchell Team. So all together, it's pretty easy. So at Mario Mitchell Team. And I love interacting. So as you know, because you're a friend of mine, but for everyone else, as well as my office and anybody that's ever known me, my team, I teach them to be an open book. I mean, we love to help as much as we can. We're a help first team. So we don't think we have any secrets. We share everything. There's a lot of business for everybody, and we can learn from anybody just as much as they can learn from us. And we're wide open.
I think this is something that's been pretty interesting to me. I mean, you and Tabitha got to come down, spend a few days on an anniversary trip, and Tasha and I got to spend some time eating dinner with you guys and get to just know the real you. You know what I mean? And we got to know each other in a way that, sometimes these little business meetings, you don't get to know each other.
That's true.
Man, what's really driving you? I mean, listen, you've had a lot of success, obviously. What really what's the drive behind, obviously, having the team? What things that you just wake up and it's like every morning you're really pushing to try to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been asked that many, many times over the years because, thankfully from day one, we've always been a very successful team. And I think a lot of that goes back to the honest answer to why I'm driven the way I drive myself is from the way I grew up. I grew up as an orphan. I grew up in foster care. I grew up without parents. I grew up homeless. So that is my story, and it's a deep story, and it goes a long way. But there were a lot of things, that could have been negative in my life, and I was always able to find the positive. But the only way that I was able to find the positive is because people took time once I was taken off the streets as a homeless kid from age 8 to 12. But when I turned 12 and I was put in this home, in that home, there was these volunteers that took their time to coach me and to teach me how to, acclimate to society rather than being a street kid. But that coaching in those moments, it really taught me that whatever I do in my life, it will be coaching. It's going to be some form of coaching because they took the time to make me be appreciated and to be confirmed. And then also taught me how to take my talents and transition that into athletics, and to be a part of something. So that is why my team is the way it is. I want them to know that I'm going to be their backbone. I'm always there for them. So they can call me, and I'll go on every single appointment, and I'll make all the time for them. And the value to that is my wife and my kids, because they get that too. And I'm balancing life is a challenge. Don't get it wrong. But I know that there's not enough time where I can't spend it with everybody, but I'm going to spend it with somebody. I will never just be alone. I'm always going to be, I grew up alone. So being alone is what I want. I want to be with people. I want to be surrounded by people, and I want to be surrounded by the right people.
I know, man. We were having dinner that night and we were talking about everything and really sharing kind of our backgrounds. When you were talking about that, we talked about the fact that, sometimes the best way to heal our own wounds are to give people what we didn't have. And I think
Yes.
you're probably one of the best examples I've ever seen at that. Whether it be what a guardian ad litem, whether it be your work with, with coaching your boys' teams, whether it be just the volunteer work you do. Let's talk specifically about something that, man, when I found out about this, I was like, man, what can I do to help?
Yes.
Let's talk about, this, because sometimes when you understand where the passion is coming, where you're giving into something, it makes it more important. And I'll say this before we can get into this, man, if anybody's got anything, and surely they have out of this interview that they can apply in their business, I would say the best thing you do, well, first off, send some referrals up Charlotte way, to the Market Kitchen team. But the second thing is let's talk about kind of what you do with the homeless shoe drive that you do every year.
Yeah. So, and this is now going on our 6th year. It started with me in the back of my pickup truck. We find shoes because when I was a kid, the guys, when I was on the streets homeless, everybody had really bad shoes. In fact, my shoes were always 2 to 3 sizes larger. So what I do now is we would just gather shoes and be able to give them to the homeless guys here in Charlotte in December. So it's right before the cold season hits. And then now it's grown so large. It's just awesome. Now we've been able to work with Urban Ministries here in Charlotte, who runs the men's homeless shelter. So now we're able to get inside the shelter where I was not allowed to previous years. So the last 2 years we go inside, and I have all the guys sit down like they're at Nordstrom's, and then my team and teenagers that come with us will sit down and change off their shoes, take off their beat up shoes, take off their old socks, give them a brand new pair of socks. Bombas, if you haven't heard of that company, donated 150 grand last year to our cause. And then guaranteed us, hundreds of thousands of pairs of socks for 5 years. So that was fantastic. And they're a great foundation to look into. But the best part about that is our team sits down, and the teenagers that are a part of our cause writes some type of note on every single box, just a powerful message to each person that gets a brand new pair of shoes. And it's all sneakers and boots, because these guys that's their way of moving from place to place. So that's the wheels, if you will, right? So they want to make sure they have a good pair of shoes to last at least a year. So that's the biggest thing, and being able to have those moments. And I think when you see the video at the end of this, if you're able to share it, is seeing how the teenagers are interacting with these guys and how excited they are to just have stories. Because I remember that as a kid, being homeless and hanging out with these guys, where some of us shy away from when we're walking down the street. They all have stories. And some of them were attorneys. Some of them were very successful financially. Some just came into a bad moment. But being able to sit down and talk to them, they bleed red just like you and I. I mean, they have great things to say, and it's a neat experience for everybody that's a part of it.
And let me just, as we close out, and listen, I'm going to have all the links for the video, for everything in the show notes, or if somebody's watching us on YouTube, in the description down there where they can know how to help out. Also, I want to go back to, the first time Chris Stewart introduced us, and he said, man, that dude right there is a real deal. At that time, I really thought he was talking about the business, but man, you're the real deal, for real. You know what I mean? For real. I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for your transparency to share with the other realtors out there, the community, as a whole, to make the industry better. And I'm going to have all your contact info, but the best way that people can get in touch with you if they wanted to, what's the very best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Call my cell phone. I'll always answer it. It's on my hip. 704-284-8057. And also, if I can give you any advice, just knowing what it's like to start from, not that long ago to now, the biggest thing is know your schedule. Figure out your schedule, commit to your schedule, and then follow through with your schedule. That's the biggest thing that I teach here is if you put in the time, and I always tell everybody, if you can't be here at 6 a.m. like me, be here from 9 to 2. And from 2 to 5, go out and just meet people. Get outside of the box that you live in and go to different places every day. Through building relationships, transactions will happen.
Man, I appreciate everything. Appreciate who you are, not just the business you do, my brother. And I will catch up with you soon. Listen, if you got anything out of this and you want more details, go to the show notes, go down below. You'll see all that information on YouTube. Thanks, Mario. And guys, we'll talk to you guys soon.